Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 6th season, we are looking at The Avengers. I'm Andy Nelson from the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network.
And I'm Pete Wright, and I'm in Portland, and there are no cellists here.
Today we're talking about Minute 28, which begins with Tony throwing holograms around the room and ends with 2 pilots in a Quinjet cockpit. Back on the show, it's Jonathan Carlisle. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi.
All right. We are wrapping up this conversation with Tony and Pepper, and Agent Phil Coulson is awkwardly standing in the back of the penthouse. Before we get to the awkwardness of the scene, though, we get Tony Tech. This is the fun stuff we see, and this is where there's obviously an interesting connection between the S.H.I.E.L.D. tech and Tony's tech, which makes me think, maybe to your point, that even if they aren't necessarily wanting him to be part of the S.H.I.E.L.D. initiative, there is some partnership in what they're doing, because the way that Tony grabs the stuff on the screen with his fingers and just swipes it up into his living space, he has a number of different holographic projectors, I guess you would call them, kind of placed around the room. And as he throws these images up, we suddenly see 3 different screens that kind of show up in front of him. How does this tech play for you? Do you like the way that this scene, that all of this appears?
I like it. I have a desk that I don't work at very often, actually, at work. But I have, when my laptop is all set up, I have 4 screens. And to make it even bigger and surrounding would be super cool.
You know what's great about it that I didn't notice before is that the holographic projectors are not like in the ceiling. They're bars.
Yeah.
They're bars and with, I assume, some sort of plate, glass hanging down and rising up out of them, because I think they're just extensions of this film, this thin film acrylic.
They're not glass. They're like literal holographic images, because we saw one of these bars when Tony first comes into the apartment, and it was on his desk and it looked just like a light, but there's no glass coming up from it. And that's what I find interesting is, like, I guess the idea of these, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is a film that is there, but
because when you watch it come up, right? Yeah. The thing that's triggering for me is that you can see, like, I'm at second one. Yeah. This is going to be a long minute. And you see the illuminated seam around the edge of the glass. And if this were just a hologram, I have to imagine they wouldn't artificially add that seam, illuminated seam around the plate. Like, it is a fixed height and width. It's not like especially the ones, frame center. It's not like it goes up above the actual projector below it. Like, it feels designed to me like we can't see it until it's illuminated. But once it's illuminated, we see the hints that there is a limit to how far it can project on some sort of invisible film.
I guess we did actually see this earlier in the film, although we weren't necessarily talking about it. But Pepper is looking at one of these screens that is on his desk when he first arrives, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about it, and if you go back, this is minute 25 when we see this, and he walks in, we see these bars placed around the space. Like, he walks past in that minute, one of them that we actually see in this minute, and there's nothing coming up from it. And when he approaches Pepper, it's not just a flat surface. It is a 3-dimensional hologram that this thing is literally projecting up above it.
And that is something that we do see later, because he picks up an element from it and holds it up to his face.
Let's get to that in a minute, because I'm still perplexed by these things, because I don't think that there's a film. I think what we're seeing,
you might be right.
I think what we're seeing at second 0/1 in this minute is likely what was on set that they used as a reference for where they needed to put these things. And they were trying to hide it quickly by the fact that these things would just appear fast, you know? Like, that's my sense of it.
So you don't want to skip to second 45 is what you're saying right now. You
I don't
don't
skip.
want
No,
to
we haven't
explore.
we have 2 through 44 to talk about.
Okay, Andy.
This is a
second
by
two.
second podcast. No, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, I think that these things are designed to be, they're designed to look like cool Tony holographic tech, where he just throws this stuff up there and all of this information appears. We're just seeing it kind of flat because likely what they had on set was kind of some flat frames for the CG team to know where to put them.
It does remind me of our experience with Tony in the courtroom in Iron Man 2 when he takes over the TV screen. Like, it's that same sort of thing. Like, I guess where my brain is going is we're talking again about, you know, the integration of SHIELD tech and Stark tech. And it's quite possible that SHIELD is using Stark tech to actually, you know, run their operation, whatever. But it is also possible that Tony's Stark tech is so good that he can integrate with any system and throw it up on the magic monitors. And I find that appealing as well.
Yeah. We're seeing 3 screens, the first of which is Steve, and it is Delta Assault, and this is an attack on some Hydra compound. I don't know if at the time they were naming all of these or if this was kind of after the fact that they just chose to name them, but we're looking at Delta Assault. We also see the resuscitation archive, and it's an image of him getting thawed out. Interestingly, the picture says U.S. Marines, which I thought was a little surprising because he wasn't in the Marines, but I don't know if maybe at some point he was working with the Marines. I don't know. All of this stuff is interesting. Clearly, they're just compiling stuff for us to catch images of things that we recognize, so we get a sense as to, oh, he's learning about all of these things. Like we see Bruce, Culver University, DNA, images of these green cells, and then a world map, presumably with his location. And for Thor, I thought it was funny, they actually just have a map of stars up there, and then they have Puente Antiguo attack, and then they have kind of an image of the hammer embedded in the rock that we see throughout that film. Okay, I want to talk to both of you about the reaction from the two of them. It seems the way that this is played that neither of these two have ever caught any stories about what they're looking at here. Like, and it makes me wonder, like, did Culver University not make it onto the news? Did Puente Antiguo not make it onto the news? Or were they kind of like brushed over, like SHIELD, like pushed to change what the news was reporting on? Because I would think that those were such big things that I would think people would have heard of them. I mean, how does your read of their reaction play here?
Their reaction of wonder?
Yeah, I think Pepper's fine. But Tony, I'm surprised because, like, did he literally think that he was the only Avenger in the Avengers thing? Like, did he not have any other information? Like, oh, well, there's all these other people. Like, I thought he would at least know that there was other people that they were surveilling.
Well, especially because he saw the files,
yeah.
Right? Like, at the end of Iron Man in the post-credits scene. It's not like this is a mystery to him. He knows exactly what it is. I think maybe the shock is, oh my gosh, I've been so busy building my giant clean energy building that I did not know the extent to which these individuals are involved in stuff right
Sure.
now. Like, is it possible that Tony and Pepper did not know about Culver University until they saw this footage? Is it possible they didn't know about the destroyer wandering down the street of Puente Antiguo?
Here's my struggle with it. Tony has kind of, I mean, we see in Iron Man 2, he is this person who has set himself up as, I'm going to go around and stop all the bad guys in the world and do everything I can to keep this planet safe. Like,
right.
I mean, that's kind of that whole crux of the footage that he's showing of, or that's going on when he's talking to the Senate and all that sort of stuff. Like, I'm stopping crime. Like, I'm great. I'm exactly what this world needs. I would think he'd be paying attention to, oh, there's this giant monster that's appeared at Culver University. There's this giant robot that's destroying a town in New Mexico.
Like, at a minimum, he has a Google alert, right? Like, at some point.
Like that, yeah. So, and I get it. I understand that outside of the realm of the stories themselves, there is, production companies, there are people, there are rights, there are all these different things that they're trying to do to tell these particular stories. And you have to have this sense of these stories as separate that come together periodically. They're not always together through all of the films. And it's just the nature of the beast to a certain extent. But still, I do struggle a little bit that it just seems like he's never heard of any of this stuff before. And I don't know. Even if he'd go, I knew all of these things were out there. I just hadn't thought about them all in a context where it was all something together that I needed to be thinking about.
Right.
Is it possible that he didn't know that Cap has been found and thawed out?
That's possible. Like, if there's one thing that I think he may not be tapped into, because I would imagine that S.H.I.E.L.D. is, I don't know, my sense is S.H.I.E.L.D.'s probably hidden that completely from the world.
Yeah. I do like that on the image it says that Cap's temperature is 37.2 degrees and his heart rate is 76 beats per minute. That is a super, super serum, y'all.
Although it does make you wonder what he's doing. Like, I guess he's just sleeping the whole time.
Yeah, it's like Locked In. It's like that Locked In syndrome, right? Where it's like that Ryan Reynolds movie where he was.
It's awful.
It's like that. He's awake. He's been awake for 70 years, but he's been frozen, so he hasn't been able to do anything. That's the horror story version of this
That
movie.
is just the worst.
You're welcome.
But then he'd be really happy he was out.
Yeah, that's right. So why is he brooding all the time? Look, I have one more thing to say, and that is my appreciation for the lighting designer, not of the scene, but of the office. That light fixture in the ceiling with 7,000 long light bulbs is glorious, unless you have to change it. I think it's very, very cool.
It is a fantastic thing. It looks like a root system coming down out of the ceiling, made of fluorescent tubes. Like,
what it also looks like? Like there might have been a ceiling fan there at one point, and they shot this scene, and they were like, "There's a weird hole in the top of the frame. Let's fill it with a weird light." And that was like, wouldn't it be interesting if that was the last thing they did for this shot? I think it's great.
That would be very funny. Yeah, big fan. All right, so. The flirtation between Tony and Pepper wraps up here as they kind of say their goodbyes. She's going to head off to DC because she's got stuff to do there, and then there is this cute flirty whisper that she gives him about if he finishes up early because he's got a lot of homework, but it's very cute. And then she whispers in him, Robert Downey Jr.'s face is fantastic. Agent Coulson's face is fantastic. What do you two think about kind of like the wrap up of this moment between Tony and Pepper?
I can't talk about what I think she says. That's a problematic bit for this podcast because of the nature of the podcast. I'm just saying.
Yes.
But I do have thoughts. I'm just going to keep them to myself.
Okay.
I love it. It's so adorable. It's adorable. It's adorable and intimate and funny, and it's a great cap on their relationship that we've had with them for the last 2 or 3 minutes. And it's adorable. It's perfect. It's a perfect way to because he is a slave to hormones too, right? Like that is just yet another example of his human side. Like, that's one of the most fun things about this movie is we spend more time with these characters as humans than we do as their alter ego superheroes in so much of the first part of this movie. And it's just really great to get to experience them in real life. And so we'll talk about the post-credit scene for this movie about how it's sort of it's a great big superhero Oreo cookie where we start with them as humans and we end with them very much as humans. So I think it's wonderful.
I'm glad that they don't reveal in any way what she says, because you could easily put in a joke at the end of the movie of like, hey, I got the thing you wanted, but it's like, it's not, it's something completely innocent and just kind of funny. But
right,
I like it because this whole scene, yesterday's minute, today's minute, it just shows that Pepper and Tony are more on even levels now at this point in their relationship, that she still knows how to get his attention no matter what it is that she's whispering. And that because he, especially in the first movie, he's just that kind of personality. He can just kind of flittery almost, where he can just kind of go wherever and his brain just goes. But she knows how to like snap him back in.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Right. Which, to a certain extent she does here. She's like, tells him, no, you've got work to do. I'm leaving. No more distractions for you, mister. And she heads out. So she asks Phil if he can drop her off at LaGuardia, which, makes sense. It's a fairly close airport to where they are at the MetLife building. And then this is where you get this character moment that, again, speaks to this, something that had been going on between Pepper and Phil over the years, as far as like developing a friendship, work friendship, business friendship, whatever it is, there is this relationship, this sense of this growing relationship here, because she asks him, I want to hear about the cellist. Is that still a thing? And he says she moved back to Portland, and then her fantastic, what? Boo. I love this moment. The cellist. Do you want to talk about the cellist a little bit?
What about the cellist? There's no cellist in Portland.
She moved back to Portland, though.
Nope. It's never been here. It's fake news.
I didn't catch what she said, and I was kind of listening to it, but I didn't dig too deep into it. And that's interesting, because I think they carry that over into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., don't they?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that's what she said at all. So,
well, it's so quiet. And that's what's so interesting, because I had heard people talking about Phil and the cellist. And I was like, I don't remember that ever, coming up in the movie. And it's because it's such a throwaway bit of their conversation that they have here, as they're kind of, because we're focused on Tony and we're looking at him. Oh, he's really studying the screen. He's looking at Loki. He's looking at the Tesseract. And we kind of get this sense of him being more specifically focused on that. So that's what we're paying attention to. And so it's such an interesting throwaway conversation that then they said, hey, you know what, let's continue that story thread. And honestly, I don't even know where that story thread ended up going in the TV show. Pete, do you have any information about?
I mean, it was the character is Audrey Nathan, and played by the wonderful Amy Acker, who's kind of a regular in Whedonverse, and but it was not a significant storyline. It was a way to introduce us to another kind of miscellaneous villain of the week character. I think she was only in one episode. The rest is just talking about her over the course of Phil's overall experience. But it's pretty short, because Phil has a lot of complicated romantic liaisons in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
And that's just one of them.
Yeah.
He's a romantic. What can I say?
He's a lover.
He's a lover. All right, Pete. Now let's talk about the Tesseract. So, yes. So
Sigh.
We're finally getting to second 45, 46. This is where you have Tony. He's studying the screen in front of him. You've got whatever the device is called, the Tesseract holder, the thing that Eric had been building at the beginning of the film. And then we will be seeing him working on that in Loki's lair. It's something for the Tesseract to sit in and for them to do in some capacity. But this is where we get that moment where Tony reaches into the hologram and pulls up the Tesseract so that he can hold it and study it.
Well, this is the problem, because I spent the first 5 minutes of this episode talking about 1 second where I actually thought that it was just a plate. And then he reaches into the plate and picks up a holographic object. So it really is more like his home setup and not an abbreviated kind of mobile version of it.
Yeah. No, it's kind of cool. What do you think of it, Jonathan?
Oh, I think this is, they're fulfilling dreams here, just the future of technology, to be able to take our 2D screens and to pull pieces out, to be able to turn things around and look at them.
Yeah, you look at the evolution of technology in movies, and you look at a movie like Minority Report, which is so cool to have like Tom Cruise, have that glass screen in front of him where he was just moving stuff around and kind of creating stuff. And now it's like we're all sliding our fingers around on glass devices all the time. I'm still waiting for them to be quite as evolved as they are there. But then once you get to this holographic level where Tony's at, like that's what I'm waiting for, where we can actually have these holographic projectors in our living space that just kind of project an image up from them that we can actually interact with. I mean, it's pretty exciting to think about things like this. And it's interesting to see. I mean, Tony is so adept at using these sorts of things. It's really kind of fun to see him playing around with it. What do you think of the way he looks at the Tesseract? Is there some hint there? Because he kind of looks at it in an interesting way. Is it like, this looks like a source of energy. Like, I mean, he's got a serious look at it. Like he's pensive about it and he's thinking about it. Is there some element that you think we're meant to think, like, did he look at some paperwork from his dad's at some point and read something about this? Because the way he looks at this makes me think he kind of recognizes it. Am I reading into this, or do you think any of that's could have been there?
It could be. There is recognition, whether it's recognition of like a energy signature or a recognition of an object or, something. I don't know what, but what we've seen him working with, what powers his suit and everything is energy. So I imagine that he's intrigued by what's there.
Yeah, it's really like he could be just staring at it, but really the twist is at the end when he's looking at this holographic fake thing in his hand, and then he looks up. And it's that pensive gaze into the middle distance off camera that makes you think he has some sort of recognition. That's what makes me think that too. So, I mean, I agree with you. What is it? Is it something that he can use to, upgrade his suit? Who knows? But clearly he's thinking something. I like it. I mean, I like that and we never get any sort of answer to that. Like we never get any sort of indication that he knew what was coming.
No, we don't. And that, I mean, I suppose that would have been something that I would have expected in the film if we were meant to think that he had seen something of his father's at some point that talked about this and he was putting two and two together. Like, I feel like he would have brought that up. Like, I recognized it from Dad's work or something, but it never comes up. But it just, the look here makes me wonder, like, and maybe it was just Robert Downey Jr. playing that way. Like maybe he had it in the back of his mind and it's never been actually something that's in there, but there is that look. And I just find it really interesting. And I guess to the whole point of performers and the work that they do coming up with things like that look that when he raises his eyes, I think that there's a lot there,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think his dad maybe told him any like bedtime stories about a cube or something? And he's like, oh, that was real? Captain America and the cube?
Yeah, maybe.
Tonight, son, we're going to talk about Captain America and the cube.
Captain America and the cube.
I want that to be like a little bedtime book now, though. A little, what were those books, like the adaptations that we had, like Golden, it was like the little golden books?
Oh, little golden books. Yeah.
I want the little golden book. Captain America and the cube. Well, all right. Well, this is our end of this scene. And then the last, 8 seconds or so of this, we go to the ocean. We are now flying over the sea and we see a jet flying toward us. This is, of course, a Quinjet. We should probably save most of our conversation about the Quinjet tomorrow. But we get a very brief look at the exterior of a Quinjet, and then we cut to the inside as we see the two pilots flying, and the camera starts pulling back. We don't get much farther than that. That's where the minute ends. I don't know. Do you two want to talk about Quinjets, or should we just save that for our conversation tomorrow?
Save it.
I think we should save Quinjets for another minute.
Well, it's definitely going to make for a fun minute tomorrow to talk about the Quinjets. That's it for today, though. So, Jonathan, tell everybody again about the stuff that you're working on, where they can track it down.
Oh, I'm not working on anything. It's so fun to watch you guys work on stuff and just go back to back with things.
Movie by minute retiree.
Yeah, maybe I'll come out of retirement at some point, but it is fun. just go listen to the Princess Bride Minute. And, that's probably been, I don't even know, 5 years since we did that now. It seems crazy. But yeah, maybe we did that like around the 30th anniversary. And it seems weird that movie's going to keep having anniversaries. And like, I'm going to start having anniversaries of when I did the podcast. That's interesting.
That happens. Definitely happens. Well, we'll have the link for that in our show notes along with UHF 60-second. Check those out, everybody. Lots of good stuff. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about minute 29. So, Pete, thanks as always.
Tomorrow, boys and girls, The Seduction of Bruce Banner by Black Widow. You get that? That was a little Golden Book note, right?
Except, in tomorrow?
It's not really. I'm just making up books. Up books. Maybe I should say, tomorrow, boys and girls, The Seduction of Agent Coulson by Captain America.
Or maybe the other way around.
Okay. One more time. Tomorrow, boys and girls. You're going to keep all of these, aren't you? Just because you're mean. Tomorrow, boys and girls, The Seduction of Captain America by Agent Coulson.
A cap in his Coulson.
A cap in his Coulson. Follow up to Cap in the Cube. Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Message to the World by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.